Hi, I'm Josue Rodriguez, and this is the Misfit Gospel. Good news for misfits. So what's a misfit? Misfits are the outliers and the geniuses, the pastors and the pagans, the stay-at-home crunchy moms and the ones who should have listened to their moms, and so many more in between. So whether or not you feel like you're in one of these groups or whether you are, we all would agree it's time for some good news. Let's go. Today, my guest is Matt Myers. Known him for a few years. I think he's pretty rad. And Matt, let's talk about you. Why don't you tell us about yourself and how we got here?
Awesome. Well, being called rad, the highest of honors. I appreciate or receive this honor. Thank you very much for the blessing.
You're very welcome.
Talk about how we got here. Oh my goodness. I got an Insta DM from someone once.
Excuse me.
All about just, hey, we're going to start the skate ministry thing. Come to this planning meeting. I met like 14 people that night.
Yeah.
And I think we're still in touch with 2 of them.
Right.
And you're one of them. And the other one's in Colorado.
Yep.
But that was it. We just started talking, and I think we pretty quickly realized, like, oh, we're 2 guys that think a lot of the same things, of like real gritty truth, like that like in the trenches ministry mindset of like, oh, these are like the least of these, let's go hang out with them. Which things that you can't always like yell from a stage at a church, but are definitely happening all around the world.
Sure.
Or in your skate park in the backyard.
Yeah.
I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you are how old?
27, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And sitting in my mind, I'm like, you've been all kinds of ages in my mind, because you're probably one of the most responsible humans I've ever met. Not young men. I'm just like, in a general sense, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I don't need to be talking to this guy. But so I remember when I met you, I was trying to figure out, how do I talk to this dude? This ain't like none of these other skaters. I'm like, he skates, but I don't know, there's something else. So it's been a really interesting 3 years. Because sometimes I have to just be like, hey, what's up, buddy? And then sometimes I'm like, so what's your deal, man? What's going on?
I remember that. We sat down one day, you just said, what's your why? And I was like, all right, it's like 8:45 in the morning. And we're just going to start off swinging. Like, this is great.
Exactly. That's how I wake up that way. It's really so strange. It's like I've had to learn to tone it down with my wife in the morning, because I'll jump out with 5 conversations ready to go as soon as I open my eyes. And it took me a long time, even, after almost 14 years, like recently, you're like, I don't have to start out this morning with a conversation over coffee. We can both just sit there. Speaking of wives, you have one now?
I do. Coolest thing I've ever done.
Coolest thing you ever done.
Whole month and a half into this, greatest adventure ever.
Congratulations.
Oh, I thank you.
Yeah. I'm glad that she allowed you to come today.
Yeah. Well, she's at work, so like,
wow. Still. Hey, I look at it that way all the time.
That's fair.
I'm glad she allowed you to come. What's up, Emma? Shout out to Emma. She's awesome.
Love you.
Yeah, so I'm like, you do a lot of stuff. So, you've done ministry for how long?
A while. How loosey-goosey are we taking this term?
So I don't know. So, it's just like when you're churched, right? You grow up in church, right? And your parents are believers, right? Sometimes a natural predisposition is to find something to do in the church. Whether you want to or not, you're just like, well, I'm here all the time.
Yeah.
So I might as well be helpful. Right. So like for me, when I started doing youth ministry at 19, it was because I didn't know what to do with myself. And I'd only been a professing Christian for a year. I'd been growing up in church, but professing Jesus for a year. And I was like super legalistic against myself in my mind. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I went to the pastor and I was like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, well, go meet with the youth pastor. He told me I want to have lunch with him and talk with him. And he just put me to work. And then within a year, that was, my mentor. And, the funny thing is about the way I just say things, I didn't do that before I met him. Oh. So I know sometimes when someone sits down and talks with you, they end up being the person that gives you a voice that you didn't know you had. And so I used to be very quiet and kept to myself. Not because I was quiet and passive, but quiet because I was depressed and dealt with a lot of anxiety and disassociation and just a lot of trauma issues. And serving people helped me focus. Didn't fix it. It doesn't fix anything. No. But, heads up, working in church doesn't fix anything. But so I'm just curious, how do you start serving when you're a church kid and you have a heart for people and it's not just your parents' faith?
Yeah. I think first serving at church was like in the tech team. Like I just wanted to learn how to do all the sound stuff. It looked cool. I mean, it's still cool. I still do it now sometimes. But as far as like more like people thing, I don't think I fell in love with God's people until like a couple years after that.
Okay.
It wasn't until later where this like kind of Holy Spirit empathy started to kick in of like, hey, like these are humans. Like each one has a relationship with the Lord. Like some is close, some is far.
Sure.
Like this is what breaks the Lord's heart. Like it's going to break yours too. Now you're going to go do something about it. I think that started, I was like probably 17-ish.
Yeah. That's still pretty young to feel that way, experience that kind of empathy.
I don't think I cried ever before then, and then it was just the Lord just like hit me with this one day, and I'm like, oh, this is that little verse, Jesus did weep, and I feel like this is similar. Like, this is okay to do this, like,
right, yeah.
But and then I remember, like you were saying, like someone helps give you a voice. Like a youth pastor of a ministry I was going to kind of pulled me aside. He's like, hey, do you realize you like lead? Like you're like a leader? And I was like, that sounds like a bad idea. Like I like throwing rocks at things. Like again, this like rebellious skater.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I don't think this is good. And he's like, no, like it's there. Like you should think about this. And I'm like, I don't think so, man. And then go forward a few months, we're in this city up north at some youth conference, and I'd heard about this like restaurant on the corner, and I wanted a burger. So I was like, I'm gonna go get a burger. And we're walking down the street. It starts snowing, and I turn around, and there's like 15 teenagers following me on the streets of the city I've never been to in the snow because I said I wanted a burger. And it just like hits me, and I'm like, oh no, the guy was right. I should talk to God about this one, see what's next.
Yeah, you never know you're a leader unless someone's following, and apparently you had one.
A couple students and they all thought I knew where I was going, and I was like, just somewhere this way. I turned and looked at my friend. I thought, oh, we're in trouble. Like someone who has an iPhone who can Google Maps this real quick.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how does youth ministry translate into someone inviting you into skate ministry?
Yeah, I think a like natural leadership building aspect of the church, and has been for generations, is like as you step into stuff, it's it just makes a little more cognitive sense to step into youth ministry. Like here are people a little younger than you. It kind of helps you establish a little bit of authority before you build that natural relational equity. So it's kind of like a stepping stone almost, but not like in a necessity way. I'm not saying everyone has to like go be a youth pastor before you can go be a normal pastor or something.
Well,
like,
some people think that way.
And I don't think that's actually
That's a super bummer when people think that way, though.
But if you're like called to do something at the moment, like there's going to be an opportunity met with you if the Lord's really bringing it to you. And a lot of times that looks like youth ministry. And I think it's because it's easier going forward to see everyone as God's children when you're actually working with children from the beginning. And that's where a lot of like your development comes from. And it's still like a lot of it's the same mindset. Like when we're talking with skaters or we're talking with like teenagers, and a lot of the skaters we talk to are teenagers, but like they're little kids that Jesus loves and wants to bring close to his Father, and it's like that's everybody. Yeah. So it's not a whole lot different. No. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, because like, for those who don't know, Greenville, South Carolina doesn't have a public skate park like a lot of other cities and states do. So to be a Christian in this community means you're out there more than not. Or if people know you're a believer, they find out really quickly. Especially if you follow Jesus, rather than being a fan of Jesus, it's going to come out at some point. You'll be outed either by yourself or somebody else. And then people are going to want to know what you're going to do, right? I think there's a predisposition, even people that don't know much about Jesus expect Christians to do something.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know if I met a Buddhist if I would expect them to reach out to the community for any other reason. That's not no shade on Buddhists if you're a Buddhist, but I've never expected anything of any other religious bent to do anything community wise. Like, not saying they don't. I'm just like, in my mind, if I meet a Buddhist, I don't think, I wonder if they serve people. Like, I don't think about it. And I just picked randomly Buddhism. It was very random.
You're not reading a book halfway right now.
It wasn't like, yeah, I'm judging Buddhists. No, just in a general sense, it's like there's something about, especially where we live in the Bible Belt, we expect Christians to do something. Sure. But then it just finds out people expect us to judge them first. And so when you show up with skaters, I think sometimes they're pleasantly surprised that you're not a jerk.
For sure.
Especially when you're a middle-aged man showing up to the skate park and I don't skate like them. You know, my definition of skateboarding is not, see, a lot of times people assume, I say this because I'm old, but when I was introduced to skateboarding was kicking and pushing. That's what skateboarding was. And a lot of the things that we call skateboarding now are as a result of my heroes then who made up all these tricks 40 years ago that are normal now. You know, what is normally called street skateboarding now didn't really even exist 40 years ago. So when I'm out there and I'm doing what I do, you know, it takes a while to gain credibility just because they're trying to figure out why is the old guy that can't skate here? And then then after a while, it's like, oh, Josue can skate. He loves skateboarding, but he doesn't do it this way. And then it's like, oh, he's actually here because he cares about us. Yeah. You know, it's like it comes in steps. And then some people still don't think I care about them because they won't talk to me. But that's okay. That comes a time too. And that happens with adults as well. So, I mean, what are kind of obstacles that you've had to deal with when just in dealing with people, when you're just trying to show kindness to them and you already meet their defenses and their walls? What's that like for you?
It's different for each person. So it's always complicated navigating like, oh, do I need to change like an approach? Do I need to change the conversation? Do I just need to wait? 'Cause like different walls are there for a reason. Like, I don't think anyone just pops up like grumpy and stand off. Like,
right,
exactly.
Exactly.
It's got to be done to them. Or something's got to happen that makes them like more callous to just kindness. Yeah. And I can't blame them for that. Like, sure. That's like, we're wired that way. Like, something hurts you, like, put a barrier from it. So like, if someone who like came in the name of church hurt you, like, yeah, you're gonna put barriers about that. If someone who came looking like sort of a father figure hurts you, like, yeah, you're gonna put walls up against this. And like, as long as you're not blaming them, I think like you'll be guided to like what's the best next step with that. Sure. And a lot of it's patience, and a lot of it's also trusting that like you don't always get to see the plant grow. You just get to put the seed in the dirt, and like understanding that that's super important and like humbling. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just like thinking, like, what's that feel like for you though? I mean, yes, that's the proper educated ministry response, which is good. But like that minute we're like, I'm trying to be cool with you. I don't understand. Oh, it sucks. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about, because everything I said is like what I gotta tell myself in the car afterwards to make it back the next time. I get to that the next day where I spend most of the day pissed off thinking about why that didn't work. You know, did I do something wrong? Did I say it wrong? Did I do this or did I do that? And then I have to get past my own insecurities and then say, well, maybe I could have done this differently. Or then sometimes I'm like, no, I think I did the right thing. That just didn't land. I don't think you should ever be discouraged if you're being obedient and who you're talking to seems to get a little harder from it. Because then that's like trying to be like, oh, that means Moses did something wrong the first couple of times he talked to Pharaoh. And like, nah, I don't think he did. I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Sure. Yeah, exactly. I think of, it just reminded me, I watched a reel recently where a woman's talking about the instances in the Bible where God says, what do you have? Or like in the Old Testament with Elisha, there was a woman whose husband dies and she's broke and her kids are going into slavery, and she goes to the prophet and it's like, you know, you got to help me. And he's like, well, what do you have? You know, she has some oil, and, you know, God does a miracle providing for her. Or Moses, like you said, you know, he's like, you know, questioning God, how in the world am I going to do this? He's like, what's in your hand?
right? And he's like, this
Yeah.
is my shepherd's staff. He goes, throw it on the ground, and it turns into a snake, right? And I think that sometimes a skateboard is the rod or the oil or a podcast or whatever. Because, on the Audacity, we have the audacity to talk about who we are and how we are and where we are. Sometimes it's about Jesus because that's what I am. I'm a follower of Jesus. But I'm also a father and husband and friend and all that's going to come out. And so why not just say it and let the chips fall where they may, And sometimes, like in a situation where I am, I mean, coming from the streets and not claiming the streets is two different things. And like I used to find a big identity in the streets still, even as a believer, still kind of repping the area code kind of feeling on the inside of me. Yeah. But now I just use it more as a tool. The eyes that I got from the streets, I can see things differently and see into ways that, well, actually, the Holy Spirit will activate things I know that I didn't realize I knew until I need it. And I think that when we're dealing with people, actually, I don't even like that term. When we're living with people and serving people and being available to people, if we have ears to hear what God is saying, then He'll show us how to use what we got.
Yep.
And He shows us how to use what we got the way we are, not the way someone else would do it. Like my mentor, I don't do things his way necessarily, but a few years ago I met, didn't meet him. I was reunited with one of them. It's like a little brother when we were interns at the church. He had just graduated high school and I was already like 19 or 20. And so we hadn't seen each other in a bunch of years. He's a pastor down in Florida now. And he's like, this just makes a lot of sense. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, this just makes a lot of sense why you do what you do. I'm like, all right, bro, I do not know what you're talking about, because we were at a wedding and it was like the reception, and this is a really weird conversation to have anyway. He goes, well, you got tattoos now. I used to have stretched ears. And he goes, it just makes sense. You got all these kids and you're married. I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. He's like, the skate ministry and all that. And I'm like, you're going to have to make it 3-year-old simple for me because I don't know what you're talking about, dude. He's like, my mentor's name is Keith. And he said, don't you remember what Keith did? Because he's now passed away. And I'm like, why don't you just remind me? Because I really don't know what you're talking about. So apparently, I lived most of my life in Michigan. And then Keith was born and raised in Michigan. And as far as I knew, all his ministry was in Michigan. And given my experiences with disassociation and anxiety, I'm not always as present with you no matter how much time I spend with you. I don't remember everything you say, no matter how much I want to. So if I say something that you heard me say, it's probably because I don't remember saying it in the first place.
It's still a good story.
Anyway, so he's like, but his first pastorate, Keith's first pastorate was actually in Spartanburg. And I didn't remember that. And he goes, don't you know what he did there? And my assumption is youth ministry, but he goes, skate ministry. But that was like 88.
Oh, wow.
And so church is doing skate ministry in 88 when skaters are just seen as rebels as it is. Would have been very groundbreaking. So I was just like really overwhelmed at the idea because all of my friends at that point really became pastors, worship leaders, worked in the church and everything. And, I had a nervous breakdown, had a divorce. I'm thinking I went sideways from ministry. And I did everything I could do to serve the Lord and be in the church. But my life, in comparison, in my own mind, when you compare yourself to other people, in my own mind, I was a wreck. I'd ruined everything. I'd done it all wrong. And then he was like, no, you're just exactly like, the person that taught us. And I was like, because I know my dad, but this man Keith, he was like a dad. And so I went home and we did Googling, and my wife Jen found an interview with him in the Spartanburg newspaper, and I read it and I just broke because he talked like me, or rather I talk like him.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I was like, and it was like God said to my heart, it was like, you're a good son. And that just ruined my life. But when people parent you, they parent you. And, So it's like we don't know who we're learning from. We don't know what we're getting when people love us until, we need to know it. And so that really encouraged me because I never planned on living in the South, much less South Carolina, and to be connected to this area without even, at least like spiritually connected to this area, without even realizing it until living here for almost 5 years. It was like super overwhelming, especially in the means of ministry and how I was taught and trained. And because really in my world, I'm taught and trained by watching you, and I just absorb everything you do. No one sits down and says, do this, then do this, and then do this. If you do ministry by the books and by we do this, then we do this, then you're not really actually going to listen to God. You're going to do it your way, and you might be successful, but you'll count success differently, I think. And I've just done things organically, so sometimes they come out pretty crass, or sometimes pretty raw, or I just ask direct questions because that's all my brain can think of in the moment. It's not because it was really a lot of thought. I think when we had that conversation, I was like, "What's your why?" That's just the only thing I could think of at the moment. I was like, "What's your why?" But I'm almost 47, so at this age, I just don't have time. I'm just like, I just want to know. Just tell me. Just tell me why.
Skip to the end.
Just let's get to the point.
Not even going to watch a trailer of the movie. Just show up.
Yeah, exactly. I heard this is a good movie. Why don't you tell me about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is really cool to be here and be able to do the things that we get to do because I'm meeting people I would have never met in my life, and I think that's why God puts us in situations to where we're using our giftings, we're using who we naturally are, we're getting to be ourselves, but we're actually gleaning from other people that we wouldn't have otherwise met had we not stepped out and tried this thing. We're like, yeah, I love this and I care about this, but to actually take it on as a responsibility to help people, that's a totally different thing. When you're just like the guy underneath the guy doing the work and then you leave, it's different from being the guy that everybody's looking at. If it fails, it's on you. If it succeeds, they're going to look at you. And, if it's kind of like, they're going to look at you. And so that's pretty awkward. But I think God sends you people to help you do those things. So being newly married, right?
Oh boy.
It took me a long time to really understand what in the world my wife was talking about. Half the time, honestly. Because she come from a completely different background than I did. And so a lot of times our disagreements or arguments or whatever were because my communication levels were minimal at best. And so she just challenged me. The way I challenge people, she would challenge me. And I was like overwhelmed by that. And I was just like, I don't have an answer for her. And so I'm like, what's this beginning like for you right now? I mean, because you're like most planningest dude I've ever met.
Most planningest dude?
Yeah, so this is the Audacity podcast. If that's not, I'll just make up words. So just do what I gotta do.
What does that mean?
Man.
What do I plan?
I don't know. It's like when we'd have conversations, I'm like, dude, this is like 10 steps ahead where I am right now. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even think like that. I just go.
All right. So what
What's your experience? Excuse me. What's your experience like right now? Having this person that you love for a while, you planned with for a while, and now it's like, it's the deal. This is our house. It's not just your house no more.
It's great. I think the biggest thing I'm learning about how we are different is like you just said, like, this is our house. For me, I'm kind of like, yep, like flip the switch. This is ours. Like, let's make it ours. For her, it's much more like a transition, and how that isn't like a bad thing or like I'm not in the wrong or she's definitely not in the wrong. It's just kind of like God made us different, and I get to celebrate that. So instead of like every day coming home and being like, man, like this is our house, this is great, like I'll kind of point out something she did because she's big into decorating and being things homey, and there's little pumpkins everywhere right now on the coffee table, and I've never seen that before in my entire life, but it looks great. I like recognize it and say it looks good and be like, does it help it feel more like our home? And then she gets kind of be like, yes, it does. Or like, oh, it would, but can you go fix this? And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'll go fix the drywall patch. Like, that's great. I'll do that today. And then afterwards, like, you paint it. And she's like, now it feels like our home. And I'm like, it's just a one spot on the wall, but that's cool.
Win. That's a win for you. No, I'm just thinking like blending worlds together because I don't know where I got it from. I didn't make it up. But calling your marriage is your calling, and then what you do together is the mission. And I was talking to someone recently, and I said to him, he's not new to the faith, but he's new to professing Jesus, and he's like, how do I reach people, and how do I,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's think of it this way. I said, if Jesus says go into all the world, and you're doing that, and you're prepared to tell people why you believe what you believe, ministry just means you're serving. That's all it means. And so congratulations, you are now in the ministry. You don't need a title. You don't need to serve in a church. You don't need to do anything extreme. You just need to be you and be available all the time, because we are ambassadors of a different kingdom, and we represent Jesus 24/7. We're never off the clock, which is why you see Christians fail, because they're always on the clock. And sometimes if you have a bunch of rules in your head outside of the relationship with Jesus, you fail. And then that's when people say, well, you Christians are A, B, C, D, fill in the blanks. And it's like, dude,
Yes,
if
all
you,
of us are exactly the same.
if
You're
you
right.
read the Bible and knew what God asks from us,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised, because, then you get the random person. Sometimes it's a young person. Sometimes it's, well, the Bible's full of rules. I'm like, yeah, but they're not written to you. The Bible is written to people who already believe. The first part is to Jewish people in the Old Testament, and the second part is to Jewish people who are Christians, and then some of them who are, not Jewish that became Christians. I'm like, so the Bible is written to believers, so the rules are for me.
Yeah.
And if I disobey them, it's between me and God. But if I fail you, then it's between me and you, and I have to make it right at all costs. And if you're angry at me, then it's an L for me, even if it's not my fault. And, so I don't mind saying those things, because then it's like, let's just get to the point.
Yeah.
I'm like, you want to be angry at Christians? Why? Or is this just a cop out? Just, you want to be angry at me for what? Let's find out why, and let's get past it so that we can have a real conversation like you would with any other human being. But that's still an American Christianity thing too.
For sure.
I don't know where we are going with that, but this is a conversation. This is what it's like to talk to me.
Well, I know that, but
So yeah. So you've already been broken into conversations with Josue.
it's great. You need a guidebook
Some people do.
for all the new people.
For all the new people, Josue goes off on tangents, and then somehow we bring it back around, hopefully. But considering family as ministry and serving, what's it like? Have you had to experience when you're serving and you don't feel like it worked?
Serving, you don't feel like it worked,
Yeah.
together with her, just in
Yeah,
general.
well, yeah,
or-
serving your spouse you're in the ministry as a husband.
Yeah. And I feel like it didn't work. Oh my. Maybe I need the guidebook for conversations.
Well, you're not there yet. You have not failed yet, my son.
This is the one thing I'm like, he won't ask me about this. I'm a month and a half in. I don't know anything.
Oh, you're still a Padawan.
Oh my goodness. I think it's. Oh my goodness, that's loaded. This is great. Maybe you should have told me questions before I got here.
Hey, I didn't know I was going to ask that.
That's great. I don't know if it's.
We can edit all the awkward pauses.
Let's do it. It isn't so much, I think of I did something with malicious intent, as it was I'm still learning this person, so I didn't know how to do this best.
Yes.
And a lot of that I've learned comes with timing. Clearly I can decide something and do it very quickly. And I'm just this makes sense. Let's just
Have you
go
done
for
that?
it. Many times.
Okay, that's
And,
that's the answer to this question. You keep giving me pastoral. I'm taking notes in my mind. I'm that's
No.
a really
It's just
no.
it's
This
just,
is bad. I
I'll
don't
just
want to hear this.
do things really quick, and that's just not the best way to do them for some people. And what's
Right.
cool is learning, getting the safe space of learning how to interact with someone who thinks very different than me. Is such a blessing, because then I get to kind of interact with other people, either at church or at work, and then kind of go back home at the end of the day and be like, hey, because I did this with you and you got mad and we talked through it, I got to love this person better today. And that's pretty good. And sometimes she's
I'm really hating you right now. This is like marriage 101, and I'm like, what the heck, dude? Get off my show.
I'm sorry.
No, this is good. I mean, I'm glad that you talk the way you talk because this is who you are, and it's just kind of the way God built you. Yeah, but that's just what I've had to learn is again, I don't know where I got it from, but the concept that women can multitask and feel and do at the same time, and I've found that I can't feel anything while I'm doing.
No, if my hands are moving, there's no emotions going on.
Yeah,
It's just
none
happening.
whatsoever. And I think that's probably the idea of why we just go and do. And then we're like, oh, wait, you had feelings about that. Wait, maybe I have feelings about that. We should talk about that. Wait, I don't even know how to talk about that because this is the way I always do things. Dang.
I do think part of what I'm learning right now, and this is probably why I'm giving you those more vague answers, is I have no shame, probably to a fault. And I'll just air my dirty laundry on any stage or podcast for all that. But
That's
now,
what we do here.
But now I'm learning that I guess our laundry is mixed. And so if I do that, she might be like, hey, I don't think I wanted people knowing that yet. And I need to respect and honor that.
Sure, absolutely. But I think you answered the question. You're like, I just go. And then I'm like, I probably shouldn't have gone.
That's great. Sometimes it's great. There's days where it serves so well. Like she gave me this long list of little house chores, and it was kind of like, if you can get it all done today, and I just like made another cup of coffee, and I'm like, I'm gonna get done before noon, and I'm gonna play video games. It's gonna be great. And I did.
Nice.
And then other days where I forget half the list, and then I don't.
So how's the video games being married thing working out?
She does Bible study on Fridays, and then that's my like introvert time. So she'll was like, I'm going to Bible study. Do you have plans? And I'm like, Zelda.
That's funny.
And that's that's it. It's my little unplug, rest. No one talks for a little bit.
That's cool. I mean, I think that like currently where video games are at, I'm not there. Like I just don't have the place for it. I think probably it's more as a dad, like I'm just like, I don't want my kids begging to play video games. They already beg to watch Disney Plus all day. And my kids are homeschooled, so I'm like, no, you got school to do that first.
Yeah.
And then you can watch 8 hours of Bluey. And that doesn't tell you the age of my kids. I watch Bluey. Okay. Bluey is an amazing show. It's like it was made, I sometimes if you read comic books or you watch shows that are quote unquote for kids, I remind people, I'm like, adults made this, right?
Yeah.
Adults drew the pictures. Adults wrote the story.
And they slide things in there.
I'm like, get off my back, But in a general sense, I think with video games, I think I stopped enjoying video games at like home games, probably at the Nintendo, the GameCube.
Okay.
So that's dated. That's a long time ago.
GameCube's still hard. It's great.
And I think I only got the GameCube so I could play Tony Hawk Pro Skater. So that's the only game I own.
Which they just did a bunch of remakes of. So now like all the new consoles have it because the game's classic. Like video games, like Hollywood realized, we're out of good ideas. Let's just start redoing stuff.
That's awesome. And then before that, but then I think we're dealing with how I grew up and we didn't have money. The only time I ever owned an NES was we got it from Rent-A-Center.
Okay.
And I played it on a black and white TV.
Nice.
Yeah. And that was like a win for me because the Super NES was already out when I got the NES. And so I'm just like, dun, 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 and I'm just like, that's great because I'm like, I would rather play NES with my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just have to find one.
Well, I mean, like I'm big on the the couch co-op stuff. So like I'm not going to buy a game if it's okay, so I said Zelda. That's an incredible story. I've always loved Zelda. That's different. But like, I'll play more Smash Bros. And Mario Kart with my friends. Because then it's you sit on the couch together.
Yeah.
You're not like talking on a headset. Which like, those games are cool. That's just not where I'm going to have the most fun. Like, I'm going to invite my friend over for like pizza and Mario Kart. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually more fun because like when I first was introduced to the idea of first person shooter games, it was like in the mid 90s and it was like a PC game. It was called Wolfenstein. And it was just, you have a barrel of a gun, you see your gun and you're in a hallway and you're shooting Nazis. And so you're shooting humans, but it's supposed to be a good game because they're the bad guys. But in reality, you're just mowing down humanoid looking characters and there's blood and you're obviously the American. You can't be another allied troop. You have to be American.
American.
And so parents were against that game then, and now it's kind of graduated into something way more high tech. Whereas like I can't even pay attention. There's so much going on, I can't pay attention. And much less, it's just no matter how aggressive or loud I can be, I don't enjoy the idea of murdering people. It's just shooting people. I don't enjoy the concept of it. So it stresses me out. And then when I'm like, I'm being hunted and I have the anxiety of being hunted on a video game,
Ooh,
that's not fun.
you're too immersed.
No, that's not fun. I prefer arcade games when you go in, you put in your coins and you go. And when you're done, you're done. But
Good arcade games.
so every time there, every once in a while you find a barcade.
For sure.
Which was more fun to take my daughter to. She was about to turn 13. I took her to a barcade, and she's like, "You're taking me to a bar?" I'm like, "No, this is a barcade." And
It's an arcade that also sells beer.
yes, exactly. She played Street Fighter and was like owning me, and I'm like, I know
like
some
the
moves.
old one.
Yeah, like
okay.
the original Street
Yeah.
Fighter. And she's just button smashing, but
But that was humbling.
oh no, we're talking about 20 games in, and I'm just losing. I'm like, no, I'm gonna focus. I'm gonna focus right now. I got this. I know some moves, and I'm like, all right, come at me, bro. And she's just like, wah, 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 wah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and she's like, this is great. And I'm like, for you, it is. You're like, I remember getting off the school bus and going to the party store, or some would call it the liquor store or whatever, and to play Street Fighter before I went home. And, so those kind of things are really just, they're more good memories. And so I can't imagine myself having as many good memories at that age if I was playing a first person shooter game.
Yeah. Because it's not as much of a game. It's like it's like, oh, here's a score. Here's like competitive. It's a little more different.
So I'm just like, I don't enjoy the concept of it, especially, and it's not, oh, it's because you're a Christian. I'm like, no, it's just, I just the same thing. I don't watch MMA, and there's Christian MMA fighters, but I'm watching people beat each other down, and I'm just like, dude, I could go into the streets and find that, you know what I mean? I'm like, but
there's no snacks when you find it in the streets.
There's no snacks. No, you are the snack in the street.
Oh my.
But the idea is just like, I don't, again, this is the way I talk, and I have the audacity to say things I want to say. Sometimes it's the only thing I can think of saying. But at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't mean I enjoy watching people be harmed. And so there's just something inside me that says that person's hurting. And there could be more of a trauma trigger, because of the trauma I experienced as a child. When I see people get harmed, I feel something. Or when I see even the perception of someone being in danger, I feel something. And that's not entertaining to me. I don't find that experience entertaining. Same thing with horror movies. I've never watched horror movies because the concept of making myself afraid as fun didn't appeal to me. Because why? Because I lived in fear. I was always afraid and anxious and worried. So why am I going to go sit down for 2 hours and watch other people be fake afraid, and then I feel afraid? Conceptually and logically, it didn't make sense to me, and that's how I've always thought. Coming from a traumatic childhood, you find yourself living as though you're an adult to cope for a long time, and you don't even realize it until it's time to grow out of it, and you don't know it, and then you don't know what to do because you've always been 5. I mean, you've always been different ages and in different coping stages, and you realize that at 40 years old, you've been dealing with it from a 12-year-old's perspective or whatever, and you're married and you have kids and stuff like that, and that's a reality, So it can be a plus and a minus when you're serving people, because sometimes people just trigger you because they hurt your feelings, and then you have to pull the string and find where that came from. Or sometimes people trigger you just because they're jerks.
Yeah, it's both.
So
I think learning to differentiate is a big skill.
Yeah. But then when you don't know why you do what you do, I really, believe in trauma therapy, and I've personally gone through EMDR therapy to deal with, to pull the strings so I can find out what's what and where it is and why it is. Not so much so I can brand it, as the spokesperson for trauma and make reels, but just so I can say, that makes sense. I don't have to do that anymore, or I don't have to say that anymore, or I don't have to feel that anymore. I don't have to make that. It doesn't mean your memories go away. It means they feel more like bad dreams and less like they're happening to you right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what forgiveness is also. I think if someone helps you walk through your pain, then the people that hurt you don't seem as scary. And you can say, I'm going to put you off to the side here, and I'm not going to be angry at you no more. It doesn't mean I forgot what you did so much as I'm like, I'm not going to be angry at you anymore because it's exhausting and it's been burning up my life.
Yep.
And, as a Christian growing up and hearing you have to forgive and forget, people literally think your mind has to erase a memory.
No.
If I start forgetting things, take me to the hospital. There's something wrong.
It's also just not wise.
Yeah. Because really what I thought was someone harmed you, so you have to forgive them, and you have to pretend like it never happened, and there's no consequences. And so that just compounds the experience. And so it wasn't until...
It's like trauma fuel.
Yeah, it wasn't...
Like, you want me to forget and do it again?
Right,
expect
exactly.
different results.
That's why hurt people.
Yep.
Because they never dealt with how they felt, so it's still ingrained in them. This is how you respond in this situation. You're taught how to hurt people.
Yeah.
So in many situations when you're hurting someone, it's because in that particular situation, in that particular experience, that's the only grid you have for those feelings.
Yep.
So you respond that way. And when you know that about yourself, you don't have to respond that way. But it wasn't until my oldest daughter, my two oldest daughters are 10 years apart. So my oldest daughter challenged me one day. She's like, I don't really respect you right now. I'm like, wait, what? She's like, because you're dealing with this particular person in this way, and I always knew that person, that made me feel bad. Now I'm growing and I can tell you that. And I had to hear it from her perspective. I never wanted to be that parent that said, well, I did my best. Because I always knew that was a cop-out. That was because, of course, I did my best, and you don't know what you don't know. But when that person comes to you and say, "Well, this is how I feel about it," I'm like, "Okay, well, what's up?" And she explained it to me, and all of a sudden, I could see it from her perspective, and I was like, "Wow, I taught you to put up with people that hurt you for no reason. Just let them stay, and because that's what Dad does." And she's like, "I saw you feel pain. I saw you feel anxiety. I saw you feel this, and you're not even used to paying attention to how you feel." And I was like, wow. And that was when this particular person was done in my life, because my oldest child explained to me what to do. And so, a lot of parents, the concept of learning from their children is like beyond them.
Yeah.
The idea that your child could teach you something, well, they're your child. They're just going to regurgitate back to you what you said. So at some point, I must have told her something that she was just bringing back to me from her adult perspective. And I was like, done. Thank you for that, because you always give me a hug, and today you did not hug me. And so to me, this person robbed me of a hug from my daughter today. And I was like super angry. But then, I ran it by my wife, and she's like, she felt the same way. And I was like, wait a minute, why didn't you ever say anything? She goes, because I felt like maybe you were more spiritual than me, and I just put up with that person too. And I was like, whoa, I just been teaching people to put up with bad people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is super embarrassing, and it feels bad. And it's like, I want to repent, and I want to pray about it. And then I just want to draw a line and say, no, this person can't come around no more. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do. But I think in ministry, when you're serving people, you're told you have to put up with everybody. You have to do it, because that's what Jesus did. And I'm like, did he? Did Jesus put up with people? I don't think he did, because to the religious leaders, he called them sinners and called them out.
Yeah.
And to the prostitutes, he called them out. And anybody that just rolled up on Jesus, I don't think he just pat him on the back and say, all right, little brother, I'm just going to make you feel better right now. He challenged people. Well, why do you want what you want? Hey, Jesus, how do I get eternal life? He was like, well, I see that money owns you.
Yeah.
So why don't you give it all away? It wasn't Jesus saying money's bad, give all your money away. He's like, money owns you, dude. Give it all away and come follow me. Come be my student. And he was like, no, I don't want it that bad. Right? And
that was the guy that left sad, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
the
he
only
left
one where it
sad.
says like
The
he
rich-
left Jesus?
rich young ruler. So it's
downcast or
like
something.
Jesus in compassion said, dude, you are so owned by your money. That's a problem.
Yep.
So you can't follow me until you're not owned by money. And so like me, I've been owned by pain a good majority of my life. And it's only recently that I really, really understood it. And so that's why I ask questions like, what's it been like to think you failed so far in your new marriage? Because you know, we can take it personally. I did my best. I'm doing my best. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, because that's the way men think. If a man says, yeah, dude, I worked out for 3 hours and then I did this, and then it's like, good job. But then dude's wife would be like, you were gone for 6 hours today and I was home with the kids. Yeah, well, I got to be healthy. Well, our family needs you here. You know what I mean? That kind of idea. Or even a job that will pay the bills or almost pay the bills makes it so that you're not home with enough time to spend with the family, and the family needs you. You know, the man usually says, well, I got to pay the bills to take care of everybody. And what I've realized is when they're grown, they do not care how much the bills are paid and how much my dad made. They're like, I needed you at this time.
Yeah.
I needed you to tell me this. And I've lived this firsthand, and I'm like, wow, you know.
Yeah, if your response to your kid being like, wish you were around more was like, did you see how big our house was? Like, nobody cares.
Yeah. Hey, you got that Disney Plus. How do you think you got that? How do you think you got to turn the lights on? You know?
Yeah.
And they're like, huh? You know.
It's rough.
What? You know?
So with this is something I was talking with Emma about just yesterday, is hearing stories of friends who like had their parents apologize for things. So with your talk with your daughter, did you get a chance to say like sorry or like forgive me or something?
Yes,
because I'm sure that
I've
just blew
apologized
her
a
away.
lot.
It's incredible. Like I remember the first time my dad apologized for something, and I was like, "This is godly repentance exemplified beautifully." And then I realized, like, I mean, it might not have been the greatest example of repentance in the entire universe, but for me, in my perspective, like seeing my parent do that was earth shattering. It was great.
Well, I think that when you're a parent and your adult child looks at you in the face, or even your younger children, like I'm not always the most pleasant person when it comes to explaining what needs to be done right now. Dear child, why is it that you are not doing the things that your mother and I have requested of you? I'm like, yo, it's bedtime. Go to bed now. And then you find out you hurt their feelings, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And I've done that before. Yeah. And I was sorry then. I do need you to go to bed when I ask, but I should not have raised my voice. Things like that, you know, even, you know, my younger daughter's like, why are you apologizing? I'm like, because I want you to know that man apologized.
Yep. That's huge. I think that's going to change the world right there.
Or like, people apologize if you do something wrong.
Yep.
I'm still the dad. I'm still the leader of our family. That's the way I explain it. They're like, are you the boss? I'm like, no, I'm not the boss. I lead our family, but me and mom decide what we're going to do. And then sometimes I'm the one that makes the final decision, or sometimes mom just gives me a better option. And I'm like, I'm going with that option. I was like, but we're here to take care of you and we take care of each other. But I'm responsible to show you how this is lived out. And they're like, oh, okay. You know, and they don't have a life experience that says, oh, well, I didn't know men did that. Now this is normal.
Yep.
Even if it's like my daughter, she's 8. And so sometimes because dad goes off on tangents, I'm trying to explain to her while I'm apologizing. And she'll say, okay, so you're disappointed with what you did and you feel bad about it? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, I forgive you. And it was done.
Amazing. That's so beautiful. Because that's like the necessary step before letting someone back in your life when you forgive them. Is like if there's repentance on their side, like that's what is supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So if you forgive people, that like is inherently tied to their value. But if they aren't repentant and you let them back in, like you shouldn't be surprised when you get hurt again.
Yeah.
And there's a balance between like growing people and learning versus just someone who blatantly doesn't think they're wrong.
Yeah.
And so clearly you're on the repentance end of that with your kid. Your kids are going to meet like a man one day and that who never apologized for anything. And they're just going to look at him like, I don't like this dude and I can't explain why, because he's not a man like dad over here. And that's going to be the coolest part.
That is a really weird thing though. Like my oldest daughter, I had a phone call with her and she's telling me about this guy she met and I'm like, oh, and she's like, but he reminds me of you. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, I don't want to hear that either. But she started explaining to me why. And he was just kind of like challenging her as a person. I believe you could do this. I believe you could do that. And this is the things I see in you. And she's like, whoa, the only person that ever said that to me is my dad. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool.
That's super cool.
You know,
that's huge.
I'm like, I kind of like him, but I don't like him. You know, I kind of, yeah, yay for you. Good job, but I don't like you. All right. Yeah. Hey, guess what? Guess what I did? The audacity not to turn the ringer off on my phone. Anyway, I did that on our last show too. I had my phone on.
So you're like 2 in a row.
It's a win. It's a new thing.
That's impressive.
We let our phones go off.
I triple checked mine was on silent like 4 times.
Well, I meant to, and then I turned it on so I would know if you texted me when you were here.
So
Oh yeah, it's your fault that I turned my phone on. Bad Matthew. But I didn't turn the volume back off. So anyway, it was a spam call anyway. So what a waste of time.
Your car's extended warranty is probably expired.
Too bad it's already 22 years old anyway. So if I had an extended warning, that would be a miracle. But anyway, I bought it used. Who cares? So yeah, that's forgiveness is just a really big deal, but I can't say that it takes a bigger person to ask for forgiveness because you don't feel big. You just feel like, all right, I'm owning up to this. I'm going to do this. And yeah.
Definitely not a bigger thing. It's a humble thing.
Yeah.
Like you have to humble yourself to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. So it's just like, there's that thing in the back of my man mind that says, all right, this child doesn't want to hear this right now because you have apologized before. And then I have to reason it out with myself. I'm like, what did I do that I'm apologizing? I have to like walk it through with myself. I'm like, well, I raised my voice. Well, was that really a bad thing? Well, no, they're not scarred. I wasn't screaming at them, but it wasn't necessary. And so I'm like, all right, that's why it wasn't necessary. So if it helps my children learn what's necessary and not necessary in tone and speaking with people, you don't get to the point where this man is screaming at you.
Yeah, I
am hoping, because I've been that person. I've been that super immature. I don't know how to handle a strong disagreement. So I start talking very loudly with my voice.
So that's what men do. They yell and get what they want.
When I don't understand, I don't say I don't understand. I just repeat what I just said again, only louder. And then 4 times in, it's like, I'm going to bed. And I'm like, wait, we're not supposed to let the sun go down on our anger.
Now we use Bible verses.
Now we use Bible verses when we were just talking out of feelings. So that to not understand the Bible though, and you're trying to think you're leading, and you kind of use it in an abusive way. That's super embarrassing. I didn't really realize. I didn't understand. You know what taught me the meaning of that verse? Veggie Tales.
For real?
For real.
Which one was this? It's not the rubber ducky one. That's my favorite.
When DreamWorks had the rights to Veggie Tales, they made a show that was on Netflix. And so Bob and Larry are angry at each other. They're roommates.
I didn't know VeggieTales did stuff in the same era as Netflix. This is
totally so like DreamWorks bought the rights to VeggieTales for a while, so they redesigned the characters, and so it wasn't them telling Bible stories. It was you lived in their world.
I don't know how I feel about that, but go on.
Yeah,
we went from
was
Street Fighter to VeggieTales
I hated
today.
It.
This is what happened.
I really hated it when it came out because they gave them irises in their eyes. So it wasn't just black dots. Yeah, it was really creepy looking. But in a general sense, the idea is Bob and Larry are roommates, and you see how they live out the Bible. And so they're arguing, and they're not going to let the sun go down on their anger, so they decide to stay awake.
all night.
So we're still awake, and it's like bloodshot eyes staying all awake. We're not going to let the sun go down on our anger, and but I think that realizing how stupid that looked, and I was like, wait, that's not what that means. What does it mean then? It means I handle it in my own heart before I go to bed, so I can rest, and then maybe I can look at it differently tomorrow. And I think sometimes the audacity to tell yourself you're wrong, and maybe there's another way to look, because we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We don't want to do it. We want to say other people have to help me do this, help me learn how to do this, when you could probably learn it on your own if you'd be quiet enough and say, I don't like how that went, and I think that we're going to try again. And if I have to learn it from a cartoon, I will. I've learned actually a lot from VeggieTales just because they're cool. Much respect to the creators, Phil Vischer and Mike Nawrocki. If you're seeing this, what's up? Anyway, no, it's really cool. When I first saw VeggieTales, it was the first 3D animation I'd ever seen, and it was like popping off the TV. I was like, what am I on? That's amazing. How did they do that?
I'm sure that's what they wanted.
That's what they wanted. Hey, they beat Disney to the home market, so good for them.
They really did, though.
So that's what's up. So you had the audacity to come and sit in front of a microphone with me today.
I did.
How's it going for you?
It's pretty great. Just
Yeah.
what I expected. We've covered everything.
So it's good for
Fathers
you.
and Forgiveness, Street Fighter, and VeggieTales.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
We talked about skateboarding a little.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the audacity here is to say how you feel, say what you think, tell the truth, and let the chips fall where they may. Sometimes it's going to hurt people's feelings. Sometimes it's going to annoy people. Sometimes it's going to be exactly what people need to hear. And, sometimes people are going to say, well, don't a lot of podcasts do that? And I'm like, yeah, but what's wrong with having another voice saying, tell the truth, not just your truth, but tell the truth that even offends you, so that you can become better. And that's what we're hoping to encourage people to do. Become better today in how you treat people and how you build bridges, and instead of burning them down. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's super
great.
rad. You're still rad.
Appreciate
You're
it.
actually pretty dope now, too. All right. Thanks for watching the Audacity Podcast. Again, I'm Josue Rodriguez. That's Matt Myers, and we'll see you next time.